Welcome everybody to our panel on AI-generated educational content. This is a super interesting topic, and we have a really phenomenal panel of people who are approaching this from many different angles. As people trickle into the session, we are going to get started in just a moment, and we're going to start with a special treat today, which we haven't been able to do yet so far today, but it'll be fun, which is a little demo, 1-minute demo of one type of AI generated content that we'll be talking about today, which is video generated content. Just give people a few seconds to come on in, and then I will show that. All right, I'm gonna share my here, and we're gonna just watch a 1-minute video. Everybody ready? Here we go.
Namaste. I am Mohandas Gandhi, or at least the AI version of Mohandas Gandhi. I must say, the world has changed a lot in the last 100 years, as the British led India for much of my lifetime. Today, however, a couple of people of Indian origin lead the British as Prime Minister and First Lady. Talk about a plot twist. I'm here to tell you about this really interesting Silicon Valley company called Professor Jim. Type in a prompt or feed their AI a textbook, and voila, multimedia content like slides, video, and assessments is auto-generated. Studies indicate a 15 times reduction in time taken for creating educational content, while learning outcomes are similar or better than teachers creating material as they traditionally do. My dream is that AI like this can make high-quality education accessible to everyone in the world. I hope you will collaborate with Professor Jim and make my dream a reality.
Lovely. All right. Let me stop presenting here. All right, so that was one of the types of educational content we will be looking at today. Pretty exciting and amazing stuff. You can also follow, we have links in the chat to all of these esteemed panelists' companies, and they all do really interesting work. So please follow that and feel free to open those in other tabs while we talk today. So let's jump into our panel. I'm going to start with just a quick round of introductions, and we will start with Younes Mourri of LiveTech.AI.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for the introduction. So yeah, I'm Younes. I'm the founder of LiveTech.AI. I'm also an adjunct lecturer of computer science at Stanford, and I work a lot in AI-powered education and getting these large language models to work at the curriculum and student level, and also in low-resource languages.
Fantastic. How about moving on to Hanna Celina?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hanna Celina. I'm a co-founder of Kinnu. We are creating a learning engine to help anyone learn anything they want to. And while companies like Duolingo may invest a lot of time in making learning super fun, companies like Coursera may invest in working with universities to put a lot of university content online. We're actually super specialized in just experimenting with how to get you to learn something as quickly as possible and really get all the science of learning, cognitive psychology studies together to design a product that teaches in addition to entertaining.
Absolutely. Kinnu is really amazing. I am a user of Kinnu myself, and I'm getting my streaks on. It is really fascinating, and they use AI in really interesting ways. Let's go to Gautam Thapar.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gautam Thapar. I am the co-founder and CEO of Enlighten. I started my career as a teacher, and then I founded a charter school in the East Bay area. Now I'm working on a product that's an AI teacher's assistant, specifically focused on grading and feedback. So our theory is that the AI should fit to the teacher. So as the teacher grades and gives feedback, the AI learns from the teacher and is able to help get the teacher to where they want to go faster. So the idea is it can reduce the time it takes while also increasing the quality of feedback we give to kids.
Absolutely. And Dr. Deepak Sekar, founder of Professor Jim, as we just saw the video from Gandhi. Tell us about what Professor Jim does.
Hello, everyone. I'm Deepak. Yeah, the Mahatma did a good job of explaining what we do. But in addition to what he said, we can actually create AI avatars of anyone with the 3 photos of them, 3 headshots of them, and we can clone their voice with 15 minutes of their audio. And so we've actually cloned Ben, and we've cloned Alex as well. So you're going to see AI clones of Ben and Alex all over the internet. So.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Acky Kamdar, founder and CEO of Magic Edtech.
Hey everyone, this is Acky. I'm based here in New York. Magic Edtech has been in business since 1989, veteran in this field. We've been helping education publishers and edtech companies to build their learning products and learning platforms. So we've been involved in the entire cycle of value creation for these companies for a very long time. So interested in this panel conversation and working with all of you.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it. You all have really fascinating companies and really interesting takes on this topic. So we're in a year into the generative AI revolution. One of the big things that generative AI does is generate. It can make text, it can make video, it can make images, it can make rubrics, it can make educational textbook material, interactives, flashcards. It's pretty incredible. Acky, I want to start with you. You, as you said, you're a veteran. You had a long track record of working with companies, including publishers, that really have to create large libraries of educational content. And it's been their moat for many of them. So talk to us a little bit about how you see content creation through AI starting to, will it change this world? Will it create a whole new generation of publishers? What is it going to be different in the next few years now that the tools of creating educational content are in the hands of everyone?
So when I said that we started in 1989, you should have asked me what is digital then. That was video cassette player. That was that. So we lived through all kinds of technology innovations that came along: CD-ROMs, DVD-ROMs, web browsers, mobile apps. Now you have all these new generation tools, and it's very exciting to be working with all these tools because it will remove a lot of mundane work that we are doing. It will hasten and fasten our process of creating, designing, creating, learning products. But some of the things don't change, which is the process of learning itself and the role that we see ourselves playing with our customers, which is education publishers and edtech companies, is to focus on helping improve learner efficacy, right? And this is a holy grail for all of us, right? How do I meet the learner where the learner is? That still doesn't change. I can use a lot of automation using AI to build learning products, but I still need to meet the learner where the learner is, and the role of humans still becomes more important. The more powerful the technology, the more important is the role of the human. And this is where we come in. This is where all the educators come in. This is where the teachers come in. So I think you think that it'll hasten, it'll quicken, it'll remove the mundane, but some of those things where we were not able to give time before, more strategic stuff in the process of learning, I think that's where we'll be able to spend more time. So very exciting days coming.
You could argue that textbooks have played that role as well, as you say, or videos or DVDs. Instead of teachers having to create content from scratch, they can use educational technology to find in any way you'd like to really accelerate and have things pre-built in all sorts of ways. But we're in a even more amazing world of that too. I want to go to you, Hanna, because you with Kinnu have really created your own content library from scratch. You haven't had to license content. You haven't had to license stock imagery. You've really made something completely new and made a lot of it, which is creating your whole product. Tell us about that process and how you decided to do it and how you learned to do it.
Yeah, how we decided to do it was very simple. I had a job for 2 years when I was negotiating partnership agreements and licensing agreements with content providers. And I just knew that if we really want to build a business and build it well, it would take too long to go and try to get this content from someone else. So we actually started doing it ourselves, old school, with hired writers, but really controlling the process very tightly. And then soon I realized that AI, GPT-3 at that time, was already getting good enough to at least help us with the questions. So and then when we started experimenting with the questions, we were like, okay, wait a second, actually, this can create content. And it was just one of those things of being in the right place at the right time, because we tried to do this in September, right before the craze of GPT-4 and GPT has started. and we were just ready for it. So we really invested a lot of time in thinking through the whole production process of all of the materials. And other than difficulty of the negotiation and deal closing, it was also the fact that you're interested in pushing the boundaries of how fast people learn. And if you can control the content formatting and be very responsive, then about what goes into your app, then you gain an incredible edge. We started experimenting a lot with writing of the content, writing of the questions, and kind of moved on right now to really go into the details of how to manipulate style, how to really tell good stories, as well as just thinking in broader terms, how to really identify the dependencies between what should be known. Because if you think about it, like every LLM that you work with has this knowledge base that you can cascade about. And this is incredibly powerful because today, this is the average of human knowledge of every educational system, of every kind of material, blog post, podcast we've ever created. So we are trying to figure out how to build these dependencies about the optimal way in which people should be learning things. And then we're using AI in order to build this text content in the absolutely best way in order to explain all of these concepts.
Text and images and questions and all of this material. It's really, and Kinnu is an app where you actually physically see the sort of information. There's a sort of metaphorical, these little sort of islands of information. And so it's been very easy to see it go from a small number of islands to this massive archipelago of islands of different content, which has really come from this incredible acceleration from AI. Deepak, I want to go to you. People just saw your Gandhi video, and you do Marco Polo and Abraham Lincoln and Jane Austen, but you also can make videos from any individual, any teacher. You have one of me, we have one of Ben. And what I think is one of the very interesting things about what Professor Jim does is you actually started this work before the generative AI splash hit the mainstream, before everybody was talking about it all the time. You've been in this space for a while, and you were already saying, hey, I wonder how we can put this together and actually do video from technology. So tell us about your journey and what you the power of this video content.
Yeah, so my journey kind of started during the pandemic. I have a 5-year-old, and so when the pandemic started, my 5-year-old school expected her to sit in front of Zoom 7 hours a day and study, and it didn't work out very well. And so I started thinking, hey, that must be a better way of doing video than having teachers teach on Zoom. So I started looking at AI as a way to do it. And this was before there was a term called generative AI. This is 2020 or so. And we filed a lot of basic patents on the technology back then. Thankfully, the US Patent Office has been granting them. And we've been building this. And we knew when we'd seen the progression from GPT-2 to 3, and we saw things got way better. And we knew it was just a matter of time before 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 come along. And it's going to be a lot more powerful. So when 4 came along, could generate entire lessons automatically. People just needed to write a prompt, what topic they want a lesson in, and the lesson got auto-generated. So it's incredibly exciting. And the thing is, this is just a start. Okay, so it's kind of Moore's law. I used to work in semiconductors before, and with Moore's law, every 2 years, things got more and more powerful. And if you look at the progression from 2 to 3 to 4, if you think 8 years out, you're going to be at GPT 8 or 9. And if you followed Moore's law in the 90s and 2000s, you're going to think of GPT-4 as equivalent to the 386. So things are going to get way better. And when we do that, you're going to have kids having an AI coach at home who works in hand with the teacher in school to students. So I think I'm very excited for the future.
Yeah, it is incredible how fast it's already changed. And week by week, we just see these tools getting astoundingly better. So just as Gautam, you do something really different, and I think it's really interesting. There's already a comment in the chat about this. Basically, other than creating, educational content in the realm of videos or texts or things to learn from directly, you're actually creating educational content for teachers, and not only for teachers, but content that actually learns from teachers and can mirror their thought process. That is so interesting. Tell us a little bit about how Enlighten does this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this really comes from a foundational belief for me as a former teacher that teachers are the ultimate gatekeepers on what content makes it into classrooms, what content ultimately makes it in front of students. It's true whether you're a school leader or teacher, teachers are the ultimate resource for that. So I think when we think about AI-generated content, the type of content that teachers are making is highly personalized, it's highly individualized, it's an extremely personal craft. And so our thinking is that AI must fit to the teacher. And so we essentially have curated a workflow where as teachers conduct that normal work, that can be for anything. We focus on grading to start, but it can be for lesson plan generation, assessment creation. Anytime a teacher is actually doing that work, if an AI system is learning from and adapting to and fitting to that teacher, then it's able to produce higher quality content. I think we have seen an explosion of content in the last 10 years. So it's not like there aren't high quality lesson plans or materials that are open source for teachers to use. Teachers still spend an inordinate amount of time generating content, whether that's for feedback, whether that's for lesson plans, slides, etc. And so our thinking is that to be a true AI teacher's assistant, that assistant must learn from the teacher and must be able to give the teacher in the style and expectation what they are looking for accurately and quickly. And so that's effectively what we're trying to build, starting with grading, because that's a workflow where you get very strong signal about what the teacher's expectations are. You can learn from that, and you can carry that forward to help them remove some of the rote work and focus on more of the cognitive tasks that really leverage the teacher's expertise.
Yeah, it's a through line of the work that all of you are doing in various ways is really about creating things that are new, but that have a style, that have a sort of consistency that can make them integrate into an educational system smoothly. So yeah, we sort of throughout all of what you do, Magic Edtech works with publishers and all sorts of different educational edtech companies, but everything has to work within their system. It's within an LMS or within a textbook model or within, and it's really about consistency and clarity. You just talked about writing content and using prompt engineering to be consistent. Deepak, you are doing Gandhi and your Abraham Lincoln have these great shared infrastructure that can look very different, but it also has this stylistic consistency. And then here you mentioned that as well, Gautam. Maybe you learn from the teacher, you can actually really emulate a teacher's style rather than just sounding like a ChatGPT, just sounding like a sort of out-of-the-box AI. Younes, you have been in AI for a while, and you've probably taught more people AI than almost anybody in the world. You ran the natural language processing specialization in Coursera, taught hundreds of thousands of people, but you also have a passion for teaching. And there's a line from your site I want to read back to you and ask you to expand on it. This is what it is. More than 40% of an educator's time is spent developing content. Creating the curriculum is the most time-consuming component of teaching a class and requires pedagogy training. We can help with that. Tell us what you mean and how you're going to save time for teachers.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, over the past few years, as you mentioned, I've been building a lot of AI courses, specifically, computer science courses and their auto graders and all. And usually it's pretty full to build Jupyter notebooks and more importantly, the auto graders. Because, if you have like a million submissions in real time, you have to take care of the auto scaling and also even today in Coursera, a lot of the courses actually don't have auto graders in other online learning platforms. So, work that I was working on for several years with the new, generative AI a lot of it could be automated from, the generation of Jupyter notebooks to their auto graders, also to the personalized feedback for the computer science assignments that's made. So, use case that I think is pretty big. That's also like you were to teach computer science in high school. Several angles. Well, the first thing is like an educator maybe does not have time to go through all of the programming assignments manually. And the other thing is, dependency issues and also with all of this, it could kind of be saved by just describing the assignments and everything is in the cloud, everything is taken care of with the rise of generative AI. And the other thing that we also work a lot on is how do you make these large language models improve by just simple interaction with the teacher or with the learner. So a lot of times, like there's like a large language model that you can take off the shelf and use. But what we're also building is an internal loop that automatically keeps fine-tuning these language models so that they're actually customized at the curriculum level, but also student level. And a big traction that we've been looking at so far is also you get them to work in low resource languages. English is good, but when the moment you go to different languages, maybe French or maybe Arabic or Spanish, they don't perform as well. So it's an entire like sub that's been working on for the past to 8 months. How do you automatically get it up to speed?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I think this is an aspect of content creation and of AI generation that we just don't talk about enough. Every time it comes up in conversation, I have this thought again and again of translation is huge, something that's so time consuming. I know that Coursera used to, I don't think they do this anymore. They used to have this huge panel of volunteers to translate these courses into every language possible. And they just announced, I think a month or two ago, that they are using AI to do unbelievable things and basically translate every course into all of these languages, including, as you say, low resource languages. That is, especially in content creators who are going around the world, that is an unbelievable leap. I want to go to you with that thinking. You've worked with so many different publishers. You've worked with so many different folks over the years, and many of them are really looking for content as a way to sort of differentiate what they do. They say, we want to make a new chemistry program, and we're going to work with a partner like Magic Edtech to create tech solutions and really cool interactives and amazing content. And we're just, I know it's a little similar, but we're entering this really odd new world in which content can technically be created by anyone, but as an earlier panelist mentioned, the floor raises. Anybody can make a chemistry reading, but to make a really good one, especially even using AI, you need a whole other set of skills. I'd love to hear you talk about how high quality content is going to be created in this age of AI.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this earlier that we can create a lot of content very quickly at a very low cost. Iterations, the editors, architects, and instructional designers, where we spend a lot of time. There is another element we often constraints in the past, which is iterations and time is one thing, resources the other thing, but also the cost of doing all of this. And learners, used to earlier days say there are 7 types of learners. Some are visual, some are experiential. But I think each learner has his day or her day. I might feel more visual, and tomorrow I might feel more experiential on the same topic, right? So my ability to deliver learning product. So I keep differentiating between content creation and content as a product versus learning as a product, right? Because I think I'm focused on learning efficacy. So if I shift that focus, then I have a lot more work to do. It is just that I was probably ignoring it earlier because of the constraint of time, scale. And I've had many projects in the past. I would come out with great ideas to create much better learning efficacy, much better engagement. And in the digital world, we are obsessed with options. We are obsessed with how much digital product adoption has happened with the learners, right? I mean, book you deliver to the student, you don't know whether they're reading it or not, they're opening it or not, right? But on the digital platform, I know whether they are opening the book or the course, they're engaging, and with all these tools where you can continuously also test their learning, right? So there is this whole content analytics, but there's also this cognitive analytics that I'm able to implement, right? So I'm meeting the learners where they are, in the mood that they are in. So same program, I can make it much more richer, right? With less iterations and less cost and quick time scale. I think as a producer of a learning product, I can really make an impact. Before that, it was just a brochure that I'm making an impact. Now I genuinely will deliver, and I can measure the outcome. I can stand that as an evidence. And from a business perspective, I can guarantee renewals. I'm making learners, right? I can talk to my outcomes. The other thing that you talked about was translations, right? Earlier, it was a constraint to take a product and take it into different markets. right? Very careful. Often thinking about localization when we go in other countries, translation into that language in other countries, but even within one homogeneous country, we may have different demographics in different school districts. How do I adapt my product to those districts, right? We're partnering with, for example, CMJ, one of these companies, where they're doing this ground level research to understand the demographics of that school district or area, where they're sensitizing demographics towards different DNI concepts, right? And then we take that as an input to say, how do I implement this in our products, right? I challenge my team to saying, suppose if we were to partner with companies like that, get ground level survey and adapt the product to that. Now, remember, this we wouldn't do before, but with generative AI tools, my ability to do this with quicker iterations and adapt it to those markets would be much better. Now, I haven't done it yet. I'm still hoping that, I'll gather a lot of this because it's still in the early stage.
Yeah.
Lot to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Deepak, I want to ask you to build on that, this idea of learning as a product versus content as a product. It's a really interesting distinction. I know you think a lot about impact in that way as well.
Yeah, so in terms of publishers' roles in all this, right? I can comment on that. A lot of people tell us, hey, if you can just type in a prompt and get GPT-4 to create a lesson, publishers have a future at all. And actually believe they have a future, and they're pretty important. We use GPT-4 to create content for higher ed, where we give a prompt and ask for lessons. The quality is pretty bad, because there's not much training data for higher ed applications. For K-12 stuff, there's a lot of training data. So GPT-4 does a pretty good job. The other thing to consider is, if you look at the restaurant business, everyone knows how to make a burger, but you still have McDonald's and you have Wendy's and Burger King. And we work with 5 of the 10 biggest publishers out there right now we take the textbooks, convert them to video. And what we find is, each publisher we work with have a unique brand style, their own brand language, and they have tremendous in-house standards how to do things. So quality of the content coming out from company Engage is often very different from the quality coming out from the publisher we work with, for instance. So I think you'll still have all these publishers around, and they're going to be doing well. Ones who are doing higher ed have to worry less about large language models and which come with them.
That in-house style and the sort of brand language that you're saying is exactly is like something that differentiates the companies from each other. Hanna, I know you also think a lot about the type of differentiated content creation that Acky and Deepak have been talking about. Change on language. You can when content is this cheap and easy to create, even if it's not always easy to create high quality content, you can do variations on it. Meet people at local levels for certain regions, for languages, for demographics, like Acky is mentioning. It's about how you think about that generally.
Yeah.
And
when Acky was speaking about the different demographics, I was immediately hit with like the thing that we're really working hard on right now, which is very simple. It's the reading level, because you would assume that adults have reading level of adults, and that is shockingly not the case. And so with every generation. So look at something like 35% of adults have reading level of a 14-year-old. So this is, what do you cater to this? Or do you try to build up the reading level to people to the gaps that they had? That's one thing. And then is, Camilla made this wonderful point that instead of, kind of following this framework of translating everything, while not building like one community with like one language where everything is in your own language, this has never been possible before. And now you can, meet people where they're at and offer them content in whatever language they prefer, and then enable them to contribute in a conversation where equal terms without really needing to speak this lingua franca of English. Really actually quite incredible. And if I may also comment, because there was a wonderful question from Jared as well about how do you evaluate content efficacy. So most of my work and my team's work over the last month has been about creating a metric to evaluate how do people learn fastest. Like we just made massive changes in content structuring. How do we know that one works better than the other? So Jared, if you're interested, I can send you all of my literature review, different modes and different studies in how learning can be evaluated. It is not straightforward, but we've done a lot of work there, so happy to share.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, this conversation is about AI generated content, but we can feel how quickly it dovetails with some of the things we've been talking about all day: personalization and differentiation, how it dovetails with impact, and how we use the rapidity of content creation to actually measure efficacy and impact, because we can test faster than we ever have before. There's so many different pieces to it. Gautam, I want to ask you, because you have an interesting take. You have been on the buying side of educational content. You are a school founder, you're an educator, not the only person who is, but you have a really deep experience in that. I'd love to hear from your perspective, AI created content to look like, to meet the needs of schools. Schools know that they're looking for differentiated reading level. Do they know they're looking for localized content? Sort of most pressing needs on the school side that this type of new content generation is going to really address?
It's a great question. I think the things that I would look at, that I think school leaders are looking at when they evaluate content, what level of decision maker, is basically always the same three things. This will be true for AI generated content. This will be true for any type of content or purchasing tool. And I think it generally comes down to, number one, like, do you believe, based on your knowledge of instructional best practices, that this is going to drive positive learning outcomes? So we can call that efficacy, we can call that soundness in terms of pedagogy, but ultimately there are tools, or there will be content that may be convenient, but doesn't necessarily align with the best practices that we know to be true in terms of research proven practices for high quality content, high quality instruction. And second and third, I think, is much more local in context, which for me as a school leader, it was, does this fit within what we can do? Implement this easily, or does this require a heavy lift in terms of training, in terms of adjusting to a new system or structure? And then finally, I think it all comes down to, how do stakeholders who engage with it in a pilot or in some sort of a testing ground engage with it? Is it something that is fitting well and that's producing the results that are intended, or is it not? And so I think when you think about that in terms of the explosion of content that we're likely to see in terms of AI, what will differentiate that content on those three buckets? And I think it really is a lot of the things we've been saying is, are we doing the best that we can to ensure that this aligns with research proven practices of instruction? It's something that's easy for teachers and instructors to fit into what they're doing already. And how are stakeholders actually engaging with it? If it's a teacher-facing tool, are teachers engaging with it deeply? If it's a student-facing tool, is it reliable? Is it safe? Is it efficacious? And how do we know? So I think it will be really competitive to have content stand out, because we already have so much content. But in terms of whether it really changes the on-the-ground reality for schools, school leaders, teachers, I believe the criteria for success remain the same.
Absolutely. We're getting such great questions from the attendees and audience that I want to go to them. I want to ask something super, super quick for you, Younes, before we go to them, because this is just a real curveball topic, but it's something I know you really know a lot about. We're entering this weird phase in Gen AI, in the AI world, where it used to be that you needed these massive corpuses of material to train a model. And we're getting to this data augmentation, this sort of new world where you can make really rich quality models without that much data. You know a lot about this. Can you just tell our audience a little bit about that world and what it might mean for education?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the big trend right now that's, few-shot learning and all these new techniques where rely a lot on data. And there's actually an interesting use case that we're actually working on right now with one of the governments, is generated insights. And we didn't have lots of data to create these AI generated insights. Let's say, for example, from a ministry dashboard or from a school dashboard, we were trying to collect data on validation, student X his performance has dropped, suggests academic counseling, for example. So it turned out that, we did around 500 or so kind of points to get something to work efficiently. And it was pretty cool because a lot of these large language models have a lot of the data that's already inside of them. And what we're also figuring out is there's a huge, in synthetic data generation. I had read a report back that in 2030, around 80% of the world data will be synthetically generated. And what that means, it just means that, data we see so far is only 20%. Next 5-6 years, imagine the amount of data that we're going to collect. And that's why there's a lot of very niche areas that one could build, whether it's in self-driving or education or any type of AI that's going to be unlocked because of the synthetic data generation. The good thing is that it works pretty well in English. So for the other languages, you can even use some type of translation or some type of supervised to help you generate type of content or data that is needed, whether it is for dashboards or whether for education or for so.
Amazing. Yeah, you mentioned you can take 3 photos and make an avatar out of it, and I picture a world. You're mentioning 500 pieces of data. That's not that many, right? I mean, I'm going to a YouTube channel, taking 500 videos, and being like, we're going to now be able to make infinite videos from this education instructor just because they made 500 or 500. It's an incredible world to think about, this synthetic data explosion. So let's go to our audience questions. The first one, and we're going to wrap around with this. I'm a high school technology coach tasked with introducing ways to use AI to our teaching staff of 280 high school teachers, many of whom are very fearful of AI. Fascinating question. What would you demo in a 30-minute presentation to, I would assume, remove some of that fear, assuage some of that fear? Fantastic question. I'll give people a second to think about it, and just do a little whip around. What would you show to make people less fearful and maybe more excited about AI? We're talking about an audience of high school teachers. Can I start with you? What would you show?
Yeah, definitely think PT because it is the most fun, and show different ways in which you can try to break it, because it produces hilarious results. That's always a wonderful way. For instance, when you ask it to rate between different people, Djokovic and Stalin, who's better, who is worse, fantastic way to and any image generator, because it's just fun, it's beautiful, and it's the biggest gap, I think, in people's skills of what they think they can do versus what you're showing them they can do with a sentence and a keyboard.
Yeah. Gautam, you've worked with a lot of teachers. What would you show?
Yeah, this is a very relevant question. I'm actually with school on Monday, not necessarily around the fear, but around introducing AI. So it seems to be something folks are getting used to. I actually have a very specific suggestion that I'm actually going to use with them. So I'll put it in the chat. There's this really cool tool called Pickaxe. And the way that I'm using this tool with this school on Monday is you essentially can identify a problem or a challenge that you face that you think AI can help you solve. And this tool Pickaxe allows you to essentially go in and develop your own mini bot tool that you can deploy right away. So this could be for, I have a really long document that I want to read and I want to be able to ask questions. You can upload the PDF and you can ask questions of it. We'll use it for, around a specific kind of lesson plan generation or some other workflow tool. So I think as people find that this can solve problems for me, it necessarily erode the fear completely, but it also shows that at least there is an upside to this technology. It can personally benefit me, and maybe it's something that I can actually access and manage myself as well.
Yeah, that approachability, and maybe this could actually benefit me, is sort of a light bulb moment. I love that. How about you? You've taught AI to many different people around the world. What would you do in a presentation to high school teachers?
Yes, good. I mean, I think definitely ChatGPT, and you can augment it with the plugins. So there are several plugins in ChatGPT. I don't know if you have GPT, if you have access to the GPT-4, you could add PDF plugin, or you can ask the Web Pilots plugin. There's actually also another one called I think Smart Slides or Slide Deck Generation plugin, and then you can use prompts. For example, it's slide deck generation of buying 2 digits by 3 digits. Let's explain it, for example. And then you'll see your slide generated, or you have a PDF. You can ask it to grade the PDF or evaluate it with certain metrics. So I would point them to those plugins.
Walker McKenzie, who is an organizer of this conference, has a great use case where you say, oh, I'm trying to teach this math concept. You can give it a standard. I want 10 examples using astronauts, on, 5 practice problems all about Roblox, and it can just spit them right out. And I think teachers could go, oh, wow, okay, really interesting. You can literally give it a standard. To Acky, what would you do to get 280 high school teachers to get excited about AI?
I think, Hannah said, chase the chat GPT and show the power of how a teacher could use that to create a little more fun in their classrooms, and that would create immediate engagement. One of the biggest challenges of, teachers is their time. They just don't have time, right? And I think, in making this 30-minute presentation, at the end of it, if they have a few things that they can literally take it next day into their classroom and play with it, I think it's literally, take it and work with it. It might be work much better than, giving them some more references. So I think, give the thing in hand. It's easy for them to go the very next day and play with it in the classroom.
Yeah.
Time is the most important thing. They just don't have time to do some more research. I think if they spared 30 minutes for this session, I think that is good enough.
That's a great idea. So they walk out with 30 minutes later with a tool that actually does something for them the next day.
Just one thing. Just give them one thing that they can go and do that. They'll become followers.
I love that. I want your answer on this as well, but there's a specific question for you that I think a lot of people are interested in hearing, which is about copyright. So a little bit about how you approach copyrighted content and, the uploading a textbook. How do you approach copyright? And then a couple of other people can weigh on this, and then we should run out to the lounge so we can have some private conversations. Deepak, what do you think?
Sure. So we work with the textbook publisher. The textbook publisher owns the copyright and the videos for them, and then make use of the video they want. As far as the avatars go, the way US copyright law works is if one's passed away more than 80 years back, you can recreate their likeness. Right to publicity law. And the reason why they chose 80 years is that it's not that person really talking. So even if people mimic that person, it's okay. You have Abe Lincoln on tax day going all over cities in America. Even though copyright law allows us to use avatars of Abe Lincoln, we always say it's an avatar. That's our policy. You want to make sure people know it's an avatar, just like Gandhi said he was an avatar right at the beginning. So it really helps students. A lot of these people are role model figures, right? Like our avatar is Ada Lovelace. She was the first person to program a computer. And my daughter, who's in 7th grade, said didn't know the first person to program a computer was a woman, and she found it inspiring. So, and we create other such role model figures to different communities. It really seems to improve student engagement and interest.
Yeah, and there's copyright in AI is an extremely complex question. I'm curious if you could just give us 30 seconds on this, because I know that you generate all of this new content that is proprietary. Take on copyright.
It is not copyrightable. Everything that I'm doing, the content is not copyrightable at all because it's AI generated. That's our assumption at the very least. Like, I think that the law is going to evolve, because the moment that you have some human intervention in the process, which of course we do, we have edited, we have our editors edited for style. The moment you touch it, it becomes copyrightable. If you just post what was generated from E or Claude or whatever else and put online, it is not copyrightable, especially clear for this. But completely impossible to detect. We haven't spoken about and plagiarism and students and plagiarism, all that fun. It's a very, very complex space. To be perfectly honest, we're not innovating through content. We're innovating through the learning mechanism. So we're not concerned. We're really, we love Wikipedia. Wonderful, shining example of what humanity can achieve when everyone works together. Trying to walk in the footsteps of this giant and to do, because really, if the value of what we make only comes from the content, then we're not doing our job correctly.
That's, I think, a fantastic note to end on. It's about learning, not about content. Even though we can make this amazing content, what our jobs are is to make the learning actually work. And I think our panelists all agree with that. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Our panelists will be in the lounge. We have shrunk down the lounge, so it's easier to find everybody's table for the next 10 minutes. Please come join them there. Panel, and for the people who wrote great questions that were upvoted, we will try to pass them on after panel and get you guys some answers, because there's some really terrific questions coming from the audience that we didn't get to. Thank you so much to all our panelists today.
Thank you very much.
Check out their tools. It's incredible stuff all around. Thank you.
Pleasure to meet everyone, and thanks for great questions, and see you in the lounge.
Thank you very much again. Appreciate this.